Hey there, you're listening to Not Another TV Podcast. This is episode 44, the week of May 10th, 2024. My name's Drew Koenig. With me, as always, is my co-host, Mads Pattassi. Mads, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. We're wrapping up into almost to the halfway of the year. No, we're not. That's not how
Yeah.
That's not how months work. Next month would be the halfway of the year. I don't understand how months or years work, so let's check in on that actually real quick. Matt, how's your resolutions been going?
I've been watching the animated shows that we've been watching. I have not. Oh, I've been bad. I haven't really watched anything else. To be fair, I made a resolution in my personal life to read like 20 books, and I've read 3 so far this year. Like, I'm just doing terrible on all fronts. I don't know what it is. I can't even remember what my other resolutions were TV wise. I just remember the animated one.
I think it was just animated.
Was it? I can't remember if I made any other resolutions, but yeah. We'll just go with animated being the only one I had. How are your resolutions going?
Not well. I think in a normal year where I had time to watch TV, I would be doing great. But the last few months have not been normal, so I have not had a lot of time to watch TV. So I've had to like, because I had like some surefire picks. I was like, all right, I'm gonna watch Survivor, and I'm gonna watch Amazing Race, and I'm gonna watch some of these cooking shows. You know, I'm gonna watch Chopped, and I'm gonna watch Top Chef.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I did kind of a little bit.
Right.
And then I fell off. And then you fall so far behind. And for some reason, reality TV episodes have to be an hour and a half long for no reason whatsoever.
Yep.
That it becomes very daunting to catch up.
That's valid.
Like, I was also going to watch The Circle just because, and then I fell so far behind.
Yeah.
Like, I was going to watch Traitors, and Traitors was very much the show everyone was talking about. And I could have really benefited from watching Traitors, and I just didn't. So I think, like, once we come back from ATX and, like, the last part of the year, I'll be able to say, oh, I did good on this resolution, you know?
Yeah,
But until then, I'm like,
I need to sit down and just, like, look into different animated series that we haven't watched because of the show, you know, and be like, okay, what is something I want to watch? What is an animated series that I want to pick up and, like, just do it.
Yeah.
Do it. I do know that, like, during the pandemic, I tried to watch Steven Universe and got sidetracked, like, partway through the first season. And now I'm like, maybe I should go back.
I mean, I would fully recommend. Like, so fully recommend. Yeah, I love Steven Universe. The first season can be daunting because it is, like, almost 50 episodes, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's 48 episodes long. So that can be kind of daunting. But, like, Steven Universe is setting up so much, like, world building and mythos and, like, slow rolling all of that kind of earns it by the end of it. But I would definitely recommend getting back into it.
Let's see, I literally just typed in top animated TV series. Let's look here. I could watch Bluey.
Bluey would be a good one. My understanding is that Bluey is over. So you won't have to, like, contend with, like, more Bluey coming out.
Mm-hmm.
It'll just be the Bluey that came out is what it is. Because
yeah.
I think the thing I heard that was, like, the Bluey that was just released, they did in, like, 2021. So it's probably over.
But you never really know with animated series.
Right.
Because, like, especially with Disney ones, sometimes they're like, oh, you thought this was over? Listen, it's been a couple years, but we have more.
I'll say that based on what I heard about how about how the latest Bluey ends, it's probably over.
Yeah, I'm sure it probably is.
Well, like the funny thing is that like ever since we started doing this podcast, like I feel like you're doing really well with like the animation stuff now, because like so,
I am doing
some
a
of the
little.
big some of the big ones I would recommend are like Adventure Time and Over the Garden Wall and
Yeah.
Lower Decks. You know.
Which I should go back and watch the seasons of Lower Decks because I only watched the one season that we just, that just aired.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I should probably go back and go back and watch those seasons. I've also kind of wanted to go and because the only Star Wars animation I haven't watched is what is it, Rebels? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't watched Rebels. So like going into Ahsoka, I knew of those characters, but I didn't really know much about them. I was like, I should watch this.
Rebels is really worthwhile. I think it's rocky at points, but it's really worthwhile.
I mean, to be fair, Clone Wars was rocky at points.
Right, yes.
But still worth your time.
Rebels is somehow even more streamlined than Clone Wars was.
Yeah.
So like where Rebels falls apart feels more apparent than like when like Clone Wars would fall apart.
That's valid. It's funny because I was on Instagram, I think it was. Maybe it was, I don't know, it might have been TikTok. I think it was TikTok, and someone was like, they went to the gym and they went upstairs to like do stretches. Because I guess at their gym, the upstairs is for like stretching and like doing taekwondo kind of like fighting, that kind of like stuff, martial arts stuff. And they're like, I went upstairs and Darth Maul was there doing lightsaber battles with himself. And I'm just like, oh my god. I forget the actor's name. Was that Roy Parks? Is that his name? I think that's his name.
Yeah.
Anyway, and I was just like, it made me like, I was looking through the comments on it, and someone was like, it sucks that Darth Maul didn't really get a lot of screen time. And someone goes, the Clone Wars. And they're like, oh no, I followed the Clone Wars. I just don't abide by that whole, the witches put his body back together bullshit. And I was like, you know what? Fair.
I mean, if that's where that ends for them, a lot of the other stuff does not work.
I was just like, that's fair. I'm curious how you feel about the rest of Star Wars.
Like, a lot of Rebels does not work for this person then.
They are clearly probably just like OG series and prequels. They're like, no, I watch these animated things, but I don't abide by this these newfangled shows.
Well, I don't know. So speaking of that, I saw some of the interviews this week that Natasha Lou Bordizzo and Bonasankno did, like kind of separate of each other, and they're like, yeah, I really think that we're like mirrored souls and doing everything but saying that they're twin flames, and I'm like, you all have to be fucking kidding me. At least try. At least try not to make me out to be a fool.
Come on, Drew.
I'm just like, this is not real. This is not the real life that's happening to me right now. Like, I'm not afraid to take the ball and run down the field with it, but like,
it's so easy when they set it up for you. Like,
it is.
It really is.
Like, it's right there. Like,
it's right there.
It's right there, and you're just like pouring gasoline on the fire.
So unrelated, but sort of related. It's still Star Wars realm, but there are very few things about Star Wars that really like irk me, like things within the fandom that irk me, because I'm like kind of like of the mindset of you do you, and it doesn't bother me. But Hayden Christensen was at Fan Expo Philadelphia this past weekend. So he was there on Star Wars Day, right?
Right.
And he did his panel, and he and Rosario Dawson were doing a panel together. And Rosario kind of like egged him on to do the famous Darth Vader line. And he goes, "Luke, I am your father." And I'm like, "Sir, that is not the line. That is not the line."
That's the line.
And I was so irrationally angry about it because then the whole crowd went nuts. And I'm like, you cannot tell me that there are not diehard Star Wars fans in that crowd that are like, "That's not the line." Like, why are you cheering for him? He's fucked it up. I'm like, that is one thing that bothers me because I'm like, that's not the line. And I was like, "Hayden, I love you. You had one job."
That's it.
One job. And he looks so proud of himself too. And I'm just like, "Oh, buddy." Anyways, that's just me and my neuroses about Star Wars. Which I'm sure you have a few of those about Star Trek because you're more Star Trek than Star Wars.
Here's the thing. I have equal levels of frustration. I have equal... I'm an equal opportunity, fuck your favorites for Drew Koenig.
That's fair.
I
It's funny. My really close friend posted something about the Star Trek movie series. You know, Chris Pine and what's his name? Those films, and she's
Right.
like, they're like, "I will never begrudge these films because they turned me into a Trekkie, but man." And I'm like, I get you. I totally get you.
Here's the thing. My shift from Star Wars to Star Trek only happened in the last few years.
Yeah.
It was really only like post Rise of Skywalker that I made that shift like harder than I had in the past.
I didn't start watching Star Trek like the original series. I'd seen the newer movies, with Chris Pine and all of them. But I had not seen like the original series or TNG. Like I watched a little bit of TNG in high school, but not like hardcore. I didn't do any hardcore until COVID, and I was like, "Oh, I'm home. I'm home all the time. What should I watch?" Oh, I've been wanting to watch Star Trek for the longest time.
Right.
And then it was I only got through OS and TNG, but eventually I'll go back and watch Deep Space Nine and some of that other stuff. So
Deep Space Nine is so rewarding.
I've heard.
Truly, I've said this before. I don't think you get modern TV if DS9 had not laid those paths into like serialized storytelling.
Right.
Serialized, but also episodic storytelling. You don't get a lot of like the ease with which Lost was happened.
Right.
Like Lost was able to run because DS9 kind of jogged.
He jogged through space.
Exactly.
They're like, "I'll get there eventually." No.
Yeah. But no, like I was at a point for a long time where I was like, both of these things are very good and I love them equally in my heart. And then after Rise of Skywalker, I was like, no, Star Trek is inarguably better.
That is completely valid. I feel that way about the sequel series. There are elements of the sequel films that I like, but I cannot, in good conscience, put any of those 3 films in my top 6 of 9.
I mean, I will die hard defend Last Jedi and Force. This is the odd space I live in, where like I will defend Force Awakens and Last Jedi to my dying breath.
I'm not saying they were. I liked them. They're still not top 6 for me though.
Oh, I think they're definitely top 6.
Because as bad as Phantom Menace is, it's fun. It is fun to watch, and so like I will watch it
deeply
over
boring.
and over again.
It's also the deeply boring movie.
I don't think it is.
I mean, I think the highs are the highs are very high. The highs are super high. The lows are just subterranean.
I feel like one of these days you and I should just have an episode where we're like, all right, we need to have it out. What is our Star Wars rankings? And like discuss.
I can tell you what my Star Wars ranking is right now.
Yes, but I feel like we should be focusing on the actual shows that we watched this week. I will say Phantom Menace is number 6. Like it's not in the like top 5 at all, but and the only reason that Attack of the Clones is in top 5, which it's at number 5, is because I love the ridiculous rom-comness of it. Like it's just so ridiculous.
You're right, we don't have time for this.
We don't. It's fine.
We don't.
Listen, it's totally fine. Oh boy.
We just don't have time for my uncensored feelings on Attack of the Clones. And I've been drinking just a little bit too much to not have that conversation. So we're just going to move along.
We are going to move along. We are indeed. I will say my closest friend and I love Star Wars on the same level, and even him and I don't agree on the order. Our top 3 are the same, but the order of those top 3 are not. Like we do not agree about the order of the top 3. But we agree that those 3 are the top 3.
I feel like our list, without getting into it, I feel like our ranking is wildly inverted from each other.
Possibly. But that's okay. You're allowed to have a wrong opinion. It's fine.
Let's move into the news.
ATX is going to be so much fun.
Oh, it's going to be great. I'm probably going to get drunk one night. We're just going to have this out.
I'm going to do it sober because I don't drink. But, like, yeah, you're going to be drunk. And I'm going to be like, this is the way I get it to happen.
We're going to have to be, like, dragged out of one of these events.
They'll be like, people, it is a TV event, not a movie event. Go elsewhere. Anyways, the news.
The news.
The news at 10.
This is here's the place we're at now, where you're delirious from not having slept.
Exactly.
And I just drank too much.
If people listen to our podcast, they'd be like, Jesus Christ, get them off the mic. Anyways, sorry.
Anyways, so what happened this week? What has occurred within the realm of TV?
They officially announced that Law & Order Organized Crime has been renewed for a season 5. However, it is making a move to Peacock instead of NBC. I think that is the stupidest move on the planet, but who am I to make that decision for them? And it was officially announced also that The Conners has been renewed for a final and 7th season with 6 episodes.
I did hear about that.
Which, again, I'm not sure what the point of that is, but all right, whatever. And that's saying something as someone who loves that show. Like, I'm like, okay, whatever. It's getting to the point where they are running out of storylines, and I'm like, okay, just end. please. I love you guys. I love these characters, but just go. Goodbye. I'm done.
Me and friend of the show Janelle talked about Not Dead Yet last year for an episode.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed that season a lot. I have not been able to catch up with the second season,
I haven't either. Yeah.
but I did really like that show. It was a lot of fun. Had a lot of heart. I liked Gina Rodriguez on it. Um, another person
I
not
like
having a great post CW life.
I like the concept of it too. Like it's kind of a new spin on ghost stuff, you know? It's like, okay, this is cool. Like, you know, but the cast was fun and it was a nice easy fun time. But like you, I also haven't had time to catch up this season.
Yeah, it was a nice show. It was like a superstar of like modern like network comedies
Yeah.
with like Gina Rodriguez being on more on the comedy side of Jane the Virgin than the drama, um, and like Hannah Simone and
What's her name from
fully
Superstore, right?
yes Superstore. I'm fully blanking on her name right now, but from Superstore.
Old.
So it's like kind of like this all star of like female comedic actors that I thought was really funny. And Brad
Lauren
Garrett,
Ash.
Brad Garrett was on this latest season. So
Lauren Ash is her
Lauren
name.
Ash, yes, Lauren Ash was great.
It's sad when that happens. Like you're like, okay, they're just getting their footing and anyways.
Anyways, but let's talk about the real head scratcher, which is the merging. I mean, there's going to be more to it than this, but the merging of Disney and Max into a one service.
Yeah, so someone said it best when they go, "Well, isn't this just cable?" And they're like, "Yes, but without residuals. It's the same thing, but the workers get paid less."
Right. I saw a tweet from Dave Gonzalez this week, which was like, so these people burned cable only to rebuild it years later without residuals, and this isn't a
Yep.
conspiracy, but it feels like a conspiracy.
It feels like the strike like has accomplished nothing because they're like, "Oh, well, we found loopholes, so we're going to work with those."
We've just done cable, but worse.
And here's the thing, and I was having this conversation with casual conversation with a lot of casual TV people about how like when Max merged with all these other channels, streaming services and like became Max instead of just HBO Max, the service didn't work well for the first like 6 months because it was trying to figure out glitches and the magnitude of space they needed for all that content. And here we are saying, oh, well, guess what? We're going to take all of what's on Hulu, all of what's on Disney Plus, and all of what's on Max and put them on one big streaming service. And it's just like, this is going to fuck up.
Yeah, and I feel like Disney doesn't need Warner Brothers.
No.
Like I don't see what benefit this serves Disney.
Because Disney's already merged with Hulu and I think ESPN.
Well, Disney already owned ESPN.
But that's what I'm saying. But like, there's the Disney Plus streaming. Like, you can now get all that stuff on Disney Plus streaming. It's like, okay, well, why would you add Max? Like, Max is a dying brand. Like, why are you adding that to your? I guess maybe because they're dying, and they're like, hey.
Well, I think the thing with like Hulu, Disney and Fox own like equal stakes in Hulu.
Mm-hmm.
And then once Disney bought out Fox, they kind of were able to own the whole thing. And before they were able to bundle it, but it was kind of like in name only, sort of. And they owned ESPN for years and years and years.
Yeah, and it's kind of frustrating because for the longest time you could choose to bundle Disney and Hulu, and now you have to bundle them.
Yes.
They're like, too bad you have to bundle, and I'm just like, well, that's stupid. I'm like, what if I don't want to? God damn it, let me stomp my foot and say no. It's an interesting move.
It does feel like like a last breath of streaming, crawling on our belly while we're dying. It feels a move of desperation, which isn't how I would currently describe Disney or even Disney Plus. But maybe that is where everyone's at.
It might be that it may be that it's not Disney Plus that was kind of desperate, but it was Max and Warner Brothers, and they were like, "Well, we'll go to Disney. They can kind of keep us alive."
Right.
That's what I think, because to be fair, there's so much hate for Max on social media right now as a streaming service because of all the things that they've canceled and all the things they've chosen to keep. And people aren't happy. They're like, that's not what we want. We don't want more Sex in the City bullshit reboot series. Like, we want the queer stuff. Like, bring back the queer stuff. Those are the big news from this week, I believe. Well, that and Amon Walker, who has been with Chicago Fire since the very beginning, is leaving as a series regular, which is weird because like he's the captain of the firehouse. So like he's a staple on the show. So like it's a big deal that he's leaving, which is very interesting considering the two main stars of it, Taylor Kinney and I keep wanting to say Matt Casey, which is the character's name, not the actor's name, but they left the show basically too. And it's just like, is this show gonna survive? We don't know.
Let's move into the GOAT real quick, where we are just gonna kind of check in with the bracket. So for everyone who doesn't know, the GOAT is a weekly segment where myself and Mads nominate a best TV character or episode of all time and pit them against each other on a poll online. Currently, we are going through a bracket of some of our best wins. We are into the second round, where our top 8 characters and top 8 episodes have made it through. And there have been some surprises.
Oh?
I think currently the biggest surprise is that Raven Reyes from the 100 is leading over Styles from Teen Wolf.
Oh, that's amazing, actually. It's weird, but amazing.
Josh is Irrelevant is leading over guest starring John Noble from Legends of Tomorrow. And then there's been some not surprises, like Donna Noble is winning.
What? No way.
7 of 9 is leading Crowley, which is a surprise.
I feel like that one's kind of an even, could go either way kind of matchup.
Right. I think there is a recency bias with Crowley that I thought could lead it over the edge, but 7 of 9 has a decent lead upon
7
it.
7 of 9 has a big following.
Yes. 7 of 9 is very much a fan favorite character.
Yes. For good reason.
Yeah. Those are like the big surprises. The Constant is leading over Blink. Vincent and Doctor's leading over In the Pale Moonlight. Measure of a Man is kicking Now or Never's ass.
Were we really surprised by any of these 3 matchups?
No, not really. I mean, The Constant and Blink are probably the most evenly matched.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But even still, I think Constant is a more universally and widely beloved episode. Even if Blink is still hugely popular and beloved. But yeah, it looks like an interesting matchup. Still ahead. We still have a couple more days of this round before we go into round 3. We should be well into round 3 by the time you all hear this episode. Still, I think the biggest surprise is Raven beating Styles, though. And I would be really interested to see if it stays that way, and if Raven is able to make it into the 3rd round, which I would not have called.
I will say, and this is me as a die-hard Styles Stilinski fan, that I feel like the current climate for television right now is leaning more towards badass female characters. And that's not to say Styles isn't a great character, but people tend to really love the female characters these days, and so it's surprising but also not that surprising to me. I don't know, I just feel like Raven Reyes is amazing.
Yes.
And she deserves this honor.
Mhm.
It is, yeah, it seems a little surprising, but you never know.
Yeah.
Maybe Styles will come back from from behind to win it.
Perhaps. Even if Raven does make it to the third round, she will have to go up against Donna Noble, which she will
Oh,
not clear.
she will not clear that one. We love you, Raven, but
Yeah.
Donna Noble's got you.
And then on the other side of that bracket, 7 of 9, if she makes it to the next round, will have to go up against John Locke,
Ooh,
which,
that'll be an interesting one.
yes, yes. And then on the TV side of that, the Constant will have to go up against Vincent and the Doctor. And then Measure of a Man will have to go up against, if it stays the way it's currently going, Josh is irrelevant, which feels more clean cut. But yeah, interesting developments with this goat. I will be watching this pretty closely to see how this folds out, especially as we get into the last 2 rounds of this bracket. Be sure to keep an eye out for these polls on Twitter and Blue Sky and Instagram. I'll try to keep bumping it up and putting it in everyone's face and being generally annoying. So, without anything else, let's move on into the main part of our show.
I heard that you loved me, but only for 2 weeks. To be hopeless or not to be, I'm weak with indecision. Could we begin again on a terrible day? Would be greatly appreciated by me.
So, our first show for this week, we are continuing our rewatch of Adventure Time, moving briskly into season 8 and actually finishing it out. Episodes 20 through 27. Adventure Time's next miniseries entitled Islands, which sees Finn, Jake, Susan Strong, and maybe BMO going in search of the rest of the humans.
Which I have one thing to say, and that is how dare you? How dare you
How dare you,
make us
indeed.
watch all these episodes? Also, how dare you, Adventure Time, for making me feel these emotions? Just too many.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. So let's start with the first episode, the introduction. Susan getting back up on her feet. The humans robot drone thing.
Which looks like a stingray.
It does look like Stingray.
I think that's really cool. And like the little ones look like little baby stingrays that attach themselves to the banana guards.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, like we get to the beginning of this first episode and it's we're on the beach with this random girl and I was just like, have we gone like back in time? Is this like a young Susan? Because it could have been a young Susan. Like it looked like it could have been a young Susan. So I was just like, are we but then the like robot thing showed up and I was like, oh, never mind. No, this is just some random girl that could potentially be Susan. Just a random girl with blonde hair. It's fine. Also, can we talk about the cupcake man that is getting butter slathered on his back?
Oh yeah, Muffin Man.
Or Muffin Man, that's it. Not Cupcake Man. Muffin Man. But like I just thought it was hilarious. I'm like, that's butter.
Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah, and then getting into like the actual meat of the episode with them facing down against the drone, and then Susan being brought back into the actual plot.
And the drone knowing Finn.
That throws you for a loop immediately.
It threw me at first, and then I was like, well, I mean, I guess it makes sort of sense. I mean, Susan is human, Finn is human. Logically, it makes sense that they might potentially have come from the same place. But yeah, I was just like, wait, how does this robot know Finn?
One thing I do love about this first episode is how immediately and fully Princess Bubblegum went, nope, this is not my problem.
Yeah, she's like, I'm gonna send you guys off to go deal with that.
Deal with that. That's so not my circus.
She's like not even wearing her princess bubblegum garb. Like she's legitimately in a Hawaiian shirt and pants And she's just like, I'm vacationing with my girlfriend who is up past her bedtime and is cranky as fuck, but we're saying goodbye to you guys and you guys go deal with your problems. She's like, Finn, you're old enough. Go deal with your own problems.
Speaking of that scene, I do so deeply love the moment where Susan walks up to them and Marceline fully looks Susan up and down and is like, hello.
She's like, hello, Susan.
It's the funniest.
And it's even funnier when we learn more about Susan's past because we're like, you know what? This is so queer-coded.
Yeah, we'll get there in a second. Let's talk about some of the human islands that we see. This whole miniseries is kind of could also be titled "Here's What Happened to the Humans."
Here's what happened to the humans.
Here's what became of them. So like you have the Weather Island where it seems like things just went really bad for everyone. Because it seemed like there was a scientific expedition that went to that island, and everyone just got eaten by giant monsters.
Yeah,
like giant wolves and bears, and I couldn't stop thinking about the recent kind of like online trend of like a woman would rather spend time in the forest with a bear than a man.
Yes,
and it's like, yes, this woman would rather spend time with her domesticated bear.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it was funny because like, and I loved when she was like, Finn was drawing. She then like looks at the drawing, closes the book, and then pats his hand like, "You tried, honey.
You tried." That was nice.
It was just, without saying anything, she was hilarious.
But I loved Finn's interactions with the bear, particularly like when he's caught in the trap and he's like, "Dude, I fought the Lich. Like, I'm not gonna mess with a bear."
Right.
I'm above a bear. Like, Finn is a D&D character who's like on like level 15 now.
He's like, this is beneath me. I've done this before. Give me something more of a challenge.
There's a lot of like really funny Finn stuff in that episode though, of like constantly insisting that Susan smells really bad.
Yes, that constant joke throughout this, the series basically has been so wonderful.
Just so good. But also,
I love when shows do that. Like other shows have, other shows in the past have done it. Like Psych with the pineapple and How I Met Your Mother with like the yellow umbrella. Like those little like nods to a running joke is just so great.
I also loved Finn's line about like, I understand that BMO's not a crab, but I don't understand why BMO isn't a crab. Which is a good reminder that while Finn can fight and do things, he's also deeply stupid. And then we have the next episode with the artificial reality island.
Yes, where they find BMO.
Which is so funny, but also deeply bleak.
Very disturbing.
Yeah, and it takes... I'll say that episode has taken on a different quality in the 7 years since I first watched it. As we've watched the internet eat its own tail.
Not only that, but like the rise of AI too. Like,
yes, where we are comfortable with a internet that does not. It's not even that it doesn't match reality. It doesn't match its own reality.
Right.
Its own logic is not consistent in the way that it was even 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. So, like, a lot of that still rings a lot differently than it did when it first came out. Just the overall vibe of this episode and all the humans.
And how they're just willing to accept this fake reality over real reality. Reminiscent of Black Mirror, but not like on the same like deeply disturbing level of Black Mirror. But
right,
it's very much in that same vein of humans are willing to let technology run their lives.
Yes, and at the same time, I feel like it's oddly optimistic, because like the figures that you see in the artificial reality are so deeply non-human,
Yeah.
are so abstract, and you see anybody like make a video game character or like make an avatar, and it's like this hypersexualized, um, deeply beautiful person, you know? And
Yep.
this has gone so far beyond, because looking at like what would people do with the technology 1,000 years on, you know? So everyone has kind of gone beyond this kind of sexualization of characters, and an aesthetic look, and it's more just about like what feels cool or authentic, beyond,
We're going on vibes.
yeah, just go exactly going on pure vibes, and it's almost like
And
the promise of the internet, like
I also love that BMO tried to make his, her own version of Finn and Jake in this alternate reality. I was like, oh, BMO, you miss your people.
yeah, and it makes sense. It makes so much sense that BMO would get plopped into this reality and immediately be one with it.
Mm-hmm.
Not even just be one with it, but basically be nominated mayor and just like have the fullest sense of like this reality in a way that I think BMO in like the normal world, the world of Ooh, has struggled to like carve out his own space,
Right.
because his creativity and imagination just kind of bucks up against like normal constraints of like what we know and logic and confines of the universe. And this is BMO can do whatever he wants as long as BMO understands the technology, and BMO always will.
Right.
He can do whatever
Because
he wants.
BMO is technology.
Exactly.
And I love the like very strong classification that Jake makes where he's like, that is our son. We need to save him.
Right.
We need to
No.
protect him. We've been saying it for a while that like they're basically a family, and then here's Jake saying that is our son.
That is sad. Let's move on to the big Susan episode, which is so heartbreaking.
It really is.
And brings back Dr. Gross, who
Mm-hmm.
was the mastermind behind all this. Like she was the one that was pulling Susan's strings all along.
Of course she was.
Which is so upsetting of an idea.
Mm-hmm.
Especially once you consider Susan as a queer woman.
Yep.
Who is it's unclear if Susan is being forced to do this, like being forced to betray Frida at the end of that episode, because she is being mind controlled.
Yeah, she's definitely being manipulated.
Yes, but it's unclear if Susan turned Frida in, if Susan like ratted her out.
I think so. My theory on this was that like she's very susceptible to mind manipulation. Like she really easily dive right into all of that the Founders Island is trying to convince everyone to think like, she buys into the song, she buys into the importance of her job and, all this stuff, even when her best friend is like, I don't know, like I feel like we should just leave, and she's like, no, it's not safe for us to leave. Like she's full on drunk the Kool-Aid, she's there, she's, so
Right.
my theory on this was that when she asked those questions to Dr. Gross, it wasn't that she necessarily said who it was, but Dr. Gross, I think what happened was that Dr. Gross could kind of read between the lines and then either monitored Susan's movements or just followed Susan.
Yeah,
to where
knew
she
enough
went.
to follow her. Yeah.
Right. Because she's like, okay, this girl doesn't question anything like ever, and here she is asking me questions. That's a little sus.
Yes.
So like that's my theory on the whole process. Like I don't think she intentionally ratted her out, but Dr. Gross made her feel like she had and made her feel awful because she mind manipulated her and then turned on her device and made her stop her best friend from leaving.
Right. Well, and also, I don't think Susan necessarily needed to rat Frida out to Dr. Gross, because
Right.
all Dr. Gross has to do is say that, have Susan smash the vehicle, and that destroys that relationship. So
Mhm.
what might have been a threat, a perceived threat by Dr. Gross to Susan by Frida, is no longer present.
Right.
And now Frida gets to be shipped off to re-education. I feel like to Dr. Gross, that is the easiest path of least resistance. But yeah, it's real messed up all the way through.
I mean, I didn't like Dr. Gross before this, and now I really don't like Dr. Gross.
Really,
So.
yeah, it does show, like, especially like in these authoritarian. I hesitate to call it a regime, because they are right to a certain extent. Like,
Mhm.
any attempt to leave the islands is
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 dangerous.
dangerous. Is insanely dangerous. Like, even past their big Goliath robot, their guardian, um, you have like full expanses of the sea not there, and um,
Mhm.
sea monsters and
And bad weather, and like it's just listen, even under normal circumstances, like, you or I, if we were to go, I'm not saying we would because don't go in the ocean,
don't go to the
but like
ocean.
if we were to go in the water and sail a boat, there is a likelihood of us hitting some kind of disaster along the way.
Right. Yes. But at the same time, it is also the hypocrisy, because we
Hmm.
know Dr. Gross leaves the islands.
Right, because she's over where we normally find Finn and Jake.
Exactly. One thing I did want to mention about these episodes is, and you might have missed it, but like during that the founder song that they sing in the episode, I think there's a reference to Glob.
I know that at one point, Kara, well, Susan, but Kara, when she's talking to her best friend, she says, "Oh my glob," and I'm just like, okay, so glob is a
Well, yeah,
thing.
like they do the "Oh my Glob" thing, they reference Glob, but like in that, like the video that goes along with the song,
Hmm.
there's a figure who has like rotating heads and has like the hair
Oh,
that
I'd have to go back and rewatch because
like
I
pre-Magic Man
don't remember.
Glob had. So I think it implies that Glob at some point helped the humans after they sailed away.
Interesting.
Which is also like, Glob would have known that and didn't tell Finn. But yeah, I do think it's really interesting, like getting to see Kara, as opposed to Susan.
Hmm.
Um, Kara, once she has her memories back and is able to speak in full sentences.
Yeah, and has a personality, and we get to see where she started, and what she was like when she was learning and growing, and to see that she had relationships and these bonds with people,
And was
it makes
intelligent.
her right, it makes her much more human. Not that we didn't like Amy, but we didn't like Susan. Don't know where Amy came from. I have no idea. But like it's not to say we don't like Susan as she is, but like it was nice to see, like you said, like it's nice to see her more human nature versus the android mechanical technology centered creation that has become Susan.
Right. Or even the monosymbolic, I hesitate to use this word, but like the more primitive version, more kind of animalistic, like the Susan that we knew like when she was first introduced. Which it is interesting to consider like how Susan got from the islands all the way to Ooh, and then found the fish people.
Because she was looking for, as we get into later on, she was looking for Finn, and she found the fish people.
She found the fish people. Like, I think it implies that something went really wrong
Yeah.
when she took off on her shuttle. Maybe she couldn't get past the Guardians, or something happened where her memory got knocked. Many years long concussion, I guess. Like, it seems unsafe.
Yeah.
It seems unhealthy. But this kind of knocked her back. But it is, yeah, kind of fascinating to wonder how that journey happened for her.
Yeah, because I was thinking, I was like, okay, she met Finn when she was with the fish people, but like didn't really register it as important, you know. So like something had to have happened where she doesn't remember her mission. And it isn't until her chip is activated that she's like, "Oh, I need to find Finn."
And it does emphasize like how much older Susan is than Finn.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we always knew that Susan was like a bit older than Finn, but
Right.
she has to be 15 years older than Finn at
Yep.
the very least, because we know that, and this kind of gets into the next episode, which will kind of take us into the next episode as well. Susan delivered Martin to the hospital where he met Finn's mom, and so that's many years before
Finn is born.
before
Yeah.
Finn's born. So Susan is at least 15 years, if not 20 years older than Finn. Which is another case of Finn hanging out with people that are considerably older than he is.
Yeah, he doesn't know how to hang out with people his own age.
Yeah. Unless they're girls that he like wants to date, he's not good at this.
No. But even then, he's still not good at it.
No, even so, yeah. Like, he can hang out with like Flame Princess or Huntress Wizard, but there's still like that underlying thing of flirtation. But yeah, to take us into the next episode, where we get to see Martin, the return of Martin, and how he meets Finn's mom. And it's hard. I think I mentioned like with the season with Martin, how like I have this level of sympathy for him.
Right.
And it's hard not to after watching this episode, because the man that Martin was not a good man necessarily. Like, he was still
but he wasn't a terrible man.
Yeah, he was still a con artist, you know. But he was still a criminal, but he
was
loved
trying
Finn.
to be good. Yeah, he loved Finn.
He was a good dad.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that would have changed at some point.
Yeah, maybe.
You know, that's something we'll never know the answer to. What happens at the end of the episode like really takes that choice out of his hands. And again, like another case of what happens here kind of breaks him. Like, he loses his memory from this event.
Yeah.
Is I think the implication we're supposed to draw.
Yeah, I feel like he has a psychotic break.
Either like a psychotic break or amnesia
mm-hmm.
that he never recovers from.
Yep.
Because there were a lot of mentions to that in previous episodes that he was in, that like he tries to think of like his old life and he can't think about it. Like, nothing comes up for him. Yeah, I think it's so well done. Sharon Horgan is so good as Minnie, I think.
Yeah, Minerva. Minnie, yeah.
Minnie. Sharon Horgan is just so good. She has that like quintessential mom voice. Like, it's so comforting and soothing.
Yeah, and it's also interesting to see what traits Finn gets from which parent. I really like her finding out that she's a helper. Like, you're just like, oh, so that's why Finn's always going out of his way to help everyone, you know, around him. You know, he got that from his mom. I cried a bit. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's very touching. Like, it's very affecting.
He just wanted to be there for his wife and give her, the dinner that she wanted when she got home, and he gets attacked by other people from the island. Like, poor guy. Like, listen, he's not perfect, but he was just trying.
There is still the question of, similar to Susan, how Martin got from the ocean to outer space.
It just ended there.
Which, like, that line isn't fully clear. And then, like, seeing what becomes of Minnie in the next episode is really difficult.
It's so sad. Like, it's understandable, but it's still so sad.
It's that kind of Greek tragedy of Finn being able to find his mom, but his mom is not what he thought she would be. Circumstances have forced her to become something else. She's still her for all intents and purposes.
It's that whole, thing of you grow up not knowing a certain parent, and so like you build up an image of that parent in your head, and then you hear stories from other people that did know that parent, and you build up that image based on those stories, and then you meet them in person, and it's a bit of a letdown because it's not quite what you imagined. And for Finn, it's sad because she's allowed herself to become this technology. And so Finn doesn't really get to have that true motherly experience with her. And it's sad for him and it's sad for her. It's just sad. I might have cried a little bit. I was also super tired, but like I cried.
It's interesting to consider like how much of like that is still Minnie and how much of that isn't. Where do you draw the line between like the personality that was uploaded and the technology that's been used to preserve her, and how there isn't really an answer because there can't be an answer. It just, the things are how they are now.
And based on what she was experiencing and what she knew, she thought she was doing the right thing, the best thing, and in a way she did. But in terms of her son, thinking she'd never see him again, she's like, well, what does it matter? And now she does get to see him again. There is that tiny bit of, oh, what could have been.
But you can also see in the mom she could have, who she would have been had Finn stayed on the island and had things been better. That she would have been a really good mom.
Yeah, and you can tell that like losing him completely altered her brain chemistry. And so, by the time this plague hits, she's just like, you know what? There's no point in me being, a human, but I don't want to die because I do want to still help people. Here's my next best option.
That last shot of them on the boat driving away, and Finn just has like that last interaction with his mom
in the house. Yeah.
Oh.
Oh. Just don't get me started. Oh.
And like there's little things in that like I really hold on to, of like, don't eat too many blueberries, they'll upset your stomach. Like that's just,
it's such a mom thing.
It's just such a mom thing to say. Oh.
She's still like, you know what? I'm gonna still look out for you, even though you're very, can handle yourself for the most part. I mean, let's be real here. It's Finn.
Right. Yeah.
But like, she's like, I'm still going to tell you things that a mom would say.
Yes. But I do want to talk about Kara / Susan and Frida.
Frida, that's her name. I keep forgetting her name.
Yeah. Yeah. The actress who plays plays Astrid on Fringe, does a really nice job voicing her. And she captures like that, the bitterness you have at like what your life could have been when like you're in, like when you get into like your 30s or something, of like, oh, that's just what happened, and I have to deal with that, and yes, I'm fine. Shut up, I'm fine.
don't question it. Just leave me alone. Like, let me live in this bubble that I've created. If I think too much about it, I will have a full-on breakdown.
But I like the emotional work that Susan does in this episode, and especially the line of like, I don't know if I'm allowed back in her life. Feels like a really mature pondering.
And the fact that she, she could easily just dismiss it and walk away and not even try to make amends, but instead she's like, I did this thing to you and I want to apologize because that is not how a friend should have behaved. I am so sorry. And, like, she owns up to her mistake and she's trying to fix it in the best way she can.
It's looking at someone and going, you were deeply important to me.
Yep.
And I didn't, because of where I was and who I was at that age, I didn't navigate that correctly.
Yeah, I ended up hurting you because I didn't know myself well enough to be able to protect myself and you.
But it's so great at the end of the episode for them to go off together.
Yeah.
Just do the things that they kind of danced around talking about when they were younger.
They do crimes.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know about crimes, but I just like that phrase. So.
Definitely be gay.
Definitely be gay.
That's definitely the subtext. It's
absolutely
barely concealed subtext.
And I love that Kara is so big and bulky and little Teacher's so tiny.
She's so tiny. I also love this that she decides to stay Susan. You know, she is Kara, and for all intents and purposes, that is the person she is. But also, she was Susan for a long time.
She's taking ownership of the person she prefers to be, and that is the one that has gotten to live somewhat freely for the last however many years. And so she's like, you know what? I am Susan.
Right. Yeah, because I feel like for her, Kara would be Dr. Gross's pet, you know?
Yep. A reminder of a past that she's not proud of.
But yeah, so that's Islands, which is just a whole lot of lot of lore dumping.
And now I feel like I have more questions than I did before.
So next week we're going into season 9. So I will say two things here. So there is one episode between the miniseries we just watched and the one that is coming right after this.
Okay.
Entitled Orb. You don't have to watch that. Some of it will play into things that will come eventually.
Okay.
And it does like set up the miniseries at the very end, but you don't have to watch it. I'm not telling you to watch it.
Okay.
But you can if you want. We will be getting into our next miniseries, which is season 9, episode 2, through episode 9, entitled Elements. Let's move on to Dimension 20, Escape from the Bloodkeep, episode 5, Bloodlines and Lifelines. So, I want to say this at the top, and I feel okay saying this. And I think I've referenced this to you before. Brennan had an idea for this season. That at the end, all of the players would fight each other to the death to get the crown. And It became very clear after this episode that was not gonna happen.
Yeah, he even says at one point, he's like, you're supposed to be fighting each other instead of going off together.
Yeah, no.
He says something along those lines.
Yeah, no, Brennan says...
Brennan is mad.
Yeah, Brennan's like, you're supposed to be evil. This is supposed to be the evil campaign.
Right, that's what it was. The evil campaign, not friendship. Yeah, because we literally get to the Bloodkeep basically, and they're all just like, you know what? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Let's just do it together. And it's just like,
mm-hmm. Yeah, they took the bare pieces that Brennan gave them, constructed their own like found family out of this. But like looking at like a lot of what happens in this episode and what Brennan gives them, I don't know how he thought something else would happen. Because like in particular, like a lot of the stuff that he gives between Leland and Maggie, you're like, you could not have written a better way for those two characters to bond and have a strong attachment together.
Right. It's like, did you not see that romance on the wall? Like, what's
Like
going on here?
not even romance, like just like this deep, like familial connection that they get.
I guess I kind of saw it as somewhat romantic by the end of this episode, but maybe I missed it.
I don't read that as romantic remotely, mainly because I see Leland as such a gay man.
I mean, that's valid.
So much of that feels like, you know, a gay crush, and it is a gay crush, and like that's the way it's contextualized in this episode. And there doesn't seem to be. I think like Reka and Matt have very good chemistry in this episode, but it's such like platonic soulmate energy. You know, it's like.
To be fair, I misread vibes on pretty much everyone, even in real life, so it's fine.
Right.
Like if I don't know, like maybe I'm just like I don't know. I was just like, oh, it seems like a budding romance. Like not like deep romance yet, but like it was just like, oh, there's something there.
Yeah, to me that feels like two people that have bonded over like their shared history with one very shitty guy, you know? So it feels more sibling than anything romantic or sexual.
That's bad.
But like getting into like the way that Leland has always prioritized Zalanash and has looked at Maggie as this competition over the years in a way that isn't entirely valid and isn't entirely accurate, and has always had like this place of weird privilege within the Bloodkeep, thanks to like Zalanash's weird obsession with him, weird fixation on him. Yeah, like I think all that's like really well done.
But yeah, I with this episode, I really appreciated the bonding happening between Lilith and Jeremiah's the animal. What's the Sockbar? Is that it?
Yeah, Sockbar. Yes.
Sockbar and Lilith's bonding this episode. Like again, Brennan, like you allow them to get into these situations and then you're surprised that they become friends.
Right, and they've had this dynamic for like a couple episodes where like it's basically just been like the Sockbar and Lilith hot tea hour. Like
yes.
like them just having like these shady asides to one another.
I will also say that Marcus kicked ass this episode. Like he's like, oh well, you know, I grew up in the skies, so like escaping from a blowing up ship, that's fine. I just will gracefully, not so gracefully, fall to the ground.
well, I think it is funny, like them seeing them crash to the ground, and it working against like what you have in your mind of like how this is gonna go, because and I think we even said this like you imagine that like Maggie and Leland are gonna be two of the ones that like have the easiest time getting down to the ground, and Marcus, being just a flat out human, is gonna have the hardest time.
Right.
And the opposite happens. Really.
Yeah. Marcus is like, psych.
Yeah, where Marcus has one of the easiest times getting down to the ground, outside of like Lilith and Sockbar.
who just like glide in a bubble down to the ground. To be fair, Maggie is in labor while falling down.
Yes, yes. But then, like, Leland dies.
Leland is dead until Jeremiah's like, I'll give you this potion.
Yeah, dead as he hits the ground. Like,
Bye. It was nice knowing you.
yeah, and I loved just how like effing made it to the ground okay, but she had such a hard time getting to the ground. Oh my
Yes.
god! Like rolling two nat ones in a row on rolls
And then
that
later
she
on
really
doing it again.
yeah, on rolls that she really needed to roll well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And it's fun. It was funny to watch Brennan during those roles because he's just like gleefully enjoying the mess that is happening.
mm-hmm.
He's just like, "Oh, that sucks."
That sucks. Yeah.
Now what are you gonna do?
But it is what we talked about a lot of how the roles influence characters so well. Because if you don't have those nat one fails, two nat one fails, you don't get to the place that effing ends up at. Where she's like,
Right.
I don't need the magic. I don't need a lot of this other bullshit.
I'm just gonna be myself.
Yeah.
Because I can survive decently enough without them. It was such a good episode. And then, oh my gosh, and then the Leland Jr. But I love that effing's like, can I propose another name option here? How about John Feathers the Eagle the baby, or the baby the eagle? Some, I forget the order or whatever. I'm just like, that is the most ridiculous name I've ever heard.
Absurd.
I love it. I was like, it's absurd that I want it.
The thing I really do like about this episode, and I feel like this episode makes the entire season worthwhile.